You're listening to Tassie Encounters Moments on Faith FM, and we're coming to you from Tasmania, right across Australia. Each weekday at 9 a.m, you can hear what the Bible says about past, current and future events. You can learn how to study the Bible more effectively. You can get to know who God is, why we're here and where we're going. And you can experience personal encounters with Jesus. I'm your host, Jason Cook, and today we have David Maxwell joining us from Launceston. Welcome, David.
Good to be back, Jason. How are you?
I'm very well. It's been a little while since we've had you on, so it's good to have you back again. How's life been treating you?
Oh, very busy. We're busy shifting house to the other side of Launceston at the moment, so I hate shifting. Everyone can understand that.
I agree with you there, but I think I need to do it more often so that we have less stuff to move.
Yes, we certainly condense every time we move.
Yes. Well, we haven't managed to do that yet, so.
Right.
Last time you were with us, you talked about faith of our fathers and looking through different people over history and both inside and outside of the Bible. And today we're going to be talking about coping with conflict. It's quite a bit of a different topic, but an interesting one nevertheless.
Yeah, and it's interesting what the Bible does say about conflict. It does say quite a bit, but we're going to look at it scientifically, generally, on a broader scope, inside marriage, outside marriage. We're going to look at a number of different things about conflict today.
Awesome. Now, just remember, throughout the week, you might miss an episode, or perhaps there's things that you've missed before. You can always check out our app on the App Store, Faith FM Australia, and you can listen to our previous episodes, or you can just go to the website, faithfm.com.au. You can find our Tassie Encounters Moments programs there. And even on the Apple podcast store, our programs go there as well. Just search for Tassie Encounters on there and you'll find us. You can catch up with all of our past episodes. So, David, coping with conflict is what we're going to be doing today. And I know you like to typically start off with an opening illustration or something. What have you got for us today?
Yes. I'm going to talk about interested versus committed. But before I do, I want to ask our listeners if they have a story, a success story of their own dealing with conflict. Text it in and we'll be able to share that hopefully on one of the days, or maybe Friday, or maybe in the following program afterwards when we get to have a look at that.
Sure, yeah.
But interested versus committed. Do you have a fishing rod, Jason?
I'm not sure I still do. I know I have had one. I'm not much of a fisherman, but I know I bought some at some stage to go fishing with my kids. So
okay, so it's probably in the shed.
It probably is somewhere.
In an attic somewhere. Right. So if I asked people in Australia, you'd probably find about 90% of Australian populations in the family have a fishing rod somewhere. And that means they're interested in fishing, but are they committed to fishing? So a friend of mine, and I have to admit, I'm nudging this number myself. A friend of mine, I went and visited him some time ago, and I counted his fishing rods, and he had over 35 fishing rods. And that was because he works with what's the group in Tasmania? I think it's Fish Tas or Tasfish.
Right.
Tasfish. And he takes people out on, fishing expeditions and things like that to help the community. So he's got a good reason. I don't have such a good reason. I'm just a bit passionate about fishing. And I've built them up over time using, cheap things. So I don't spend a lot of money on it, but still, it's the difference between interested and committed. If you compare the two, the numbers would be vastly different. So the number of people who are committed to fishing in Australia would be significantly lower, right? So those who regularly pray, attend church, and are committed to their life of Christians actually stand a better chance of having a long and successful marriage. It doesn't mean it'll be trouble-free, but a long and successful marriage.
That's interesting. Very interesting. But we still see, though, that in the church there are still, quite a high divorce rate, not that similar to the church.
Yeah,
Not that similar to the general population.
Well, not dissimilar either, not dissimilar. We'll have a look at that in a moment, but it is true if you don't live a truly Christian life. And what I mean by that is, if you just go to church for Easter and Christmas and, dedications or baptisms and, just for those important things throughout a child's life or an adult's life, marriages, funerals. That's not really what you'd call a dedicated Christian life. Okay, even though some people might think, well, that's all I have to do. Well, we're in relationships, and we're in a relationship with God if you call yourself a Christian. And if you're in that relationship, either physically or spiritually, there's going to be conflict with people because we live in the world. And we look around us, and the world is absolutely full of conflict today. So, the solutions we're going to look at this week, good communication, the 5 C's of marriage, reconciliation, and then reviewing all of that on Friday. We're going to look mainly today at marriage and divorce, but when we look at the principles we talk about, we're going to be able to apply those to relationships in general, and it's important that we think in that way as well. So I'm going to talk about marriage and divorce today, but the rest of the week we're going to look at both that and relationships in general. So if you're listening to this, apply it to relationships in general.
Okay.
So in the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, for 2020, it's only 5 years ago, there were 30% less marriages in the previous year. Now, that's the largest decline in marriages ever recorded since they started recording statistics about marriage. And that's pretty big, isn't it?
It is, and I'm guessing it's because people are it's not because they're not getting together. I guess it's because they're losing faith or trust in marriage or something.
In marriage, yeah, and that's right. And COVID-19 played a big role in that because we're talking about statistics from 2020. And so lots more people weren't able to get married. And so as they start just habitating,
Yep.
That's the word. Sometimes they just don't see a need for marriage. Why do I need a piece of paper? Because they're doing the same thing without it. So in relation to the success of these marriages overall, according to that data in 2020, currently around 2 of every 3 marriages fail. That's 60% of marriages. So clearly that's on the rise, isn't it? Many years ago I heard it was 30%. Now it's 60%. And it's often been reported that those statistics are pretty much the same either inside or outside faith communities. It's no different to people in the church or call themselves Christians. But it doesn't paint the full picture because of those identifying as Christians but rarely attending church of any faith. The rate is no different. It's 60%. It doesn't matter if you're in the church, out of the church, you go to church or you don't.
Because ultimately your life is really no different, is it, in that situation?
No, that's right. That's right. However, in his book entitled Christians Are Hate-Filled Hypocrites and Other Lies You've Been Told, okay, so that's a lie that people have been told, Bradley Wright actually says of those who identify as Christians and take their faith seriously, that means they make every effort to go to church every week and they're involved in their church and they're in that community of faith, most of their life, only 38% have been divorced. And that's a very different rate. Very different rate. And it shows the true difference between genuine faith and the effect that genuine faith has on marriage. Now, it's still a high statistic, don't get me wrong, but it shows there's this real difference between people who have genuine faith, really involved in church.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really is distinguished by the sort of relationship they have with God. And how much they're really living out the Christian life.
Yeah, that's right. They take what Jesus said about a Christian relationship and a marriage relationship as being extremely important. Now, we didn't look at a Bible verse today, but I did want to look at Galatians. Ephesians talks about how we should treat each other as a married couple. But Jesus actually talks in Matthew about adultery starting in the heart. And we'll look at this passage later in the week. But I think it's enough for us today to say, why did Jesus talk specifically about marriage and adultery? So in this chapter, in chapter 5 of Matthew, he talks about murder, he talks about adultery, he talks about sacredness of marriage, and some other things, loving your enemies. He just picks a few of the commandments to talk about. Why did he pick on adultery, do you think?
I guess because it's a pretty common one, and I think also the culture of the day, which is probably not a lot different to today. It was done, I think, without a lot of consideration. In those days, the man was probably in the position of power and could divorce his wife very easily.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, that's what they were doing then. The religious leaders, they were looking at a new partner and they were going, yeah, you know what, I'm not having any more kids with this old lady. And when I say old, she was probably in her 30s, not really old. And he would see a newer partner and he'd go, I think I'm going to get with her. So they would write a certificate of divorce. So divorce is not entirely new. Get rid of the old one and then marry the new one. And Jesus was saying, hey, that sin is starting in your mind. You're already lusting after that woman. You're already committing adultery. And so he raised a very high standard.
Hey, David, we've got about a minute left, but
yes,
I've heard it said that we should be very careful about our choice of partner, and we should, and I agree with that. I think we need to spend time to get to know somebody really well. But also there's another sort of saying that says that we need to think about whether we're the right sort of partner as well.
Yes.
It's not always about the other person being perfect. How good am I in a relationship?
Yes, that's right. And we will look at that as well. It's very interesting that even outside of a church today, the government looks at the importance of marriage. And I'm a marriage celebrant, authorised to solemnise marriages. And it says in the things we quote is, before you're joined in marriage in my presence and in the presence of these witnesses, I remind you of the solemn and binding nature of the relationship into which you're about to enter. Marriage, according to law in Australia, is a union of two people to the exclusion of all others, voluntarily entered into life. Now, that's in the secular world, and they know how important it is. So, look, what we've basically looked at today is marriage is not as important today as it has been in the past. But we see that relationships that God is included in a genuine experience, they have a much more better chance of making it work for life. And so if you want that better relationship with others, stay tuned, because this week we're going to look at how we can do that.
Absolutely. We've got a book offer coming up, which we'll be giving away all of this week, so stay tuned for that.
This program is made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.
Our book offer this week is The Great Controversy. We've been talking about conflict this week, so there's certainly a cosmic conflict going on, which this book talks about. Read the story of the controversy between God and Satan that will soon end in victory for God and his people. This work starts with the destruction of Jerusalem and follows through the Dark Ages, the Reformation, and the worldwide religious awakening. Draw courage as you read of Christ's second coming in the new earth. And the new earth. In this volume, the author powerfully points out the principles involved in the impending conflict and how each person can stay firmly for God and for his truth. So that's our book offer. Do text us in. The code word for this week is TEM and the number 2 and the number 9. So no spaces in there. TEM29. Text it into 0488 880 891. So that's TEM29. Text it into 0488 880 891. Thank you, David. And tomorrow,
you're welcome.
We'll have you back again, and we're going to be talking about the importance of good communication. This is You, Me, and Jesus by Arbor North.
Wipe your tears, take a breath, lay your head on my chest, let me hold you through the night.
Yeah, the world can bring us down, but I still believe somehow it's all gonna be alright. Come what may, the highs, the lows. Well, this life will be hard, but you and me won't. When the waters rise and we face the fire, we'll rest in our foundation, hand in hand, on our knees, nothing between us, you, me, and Jesus. Have a few fights, who's wrong and who's right, but I want you to know, at the end of the day, I'm always here to stay. No, you'll never be alone. Come what may, the highs, the lows. Well, this life will be hard, but you and me won't. When the waters rise and we face the fire, we'll rest in our foundation, hand in hand, on our knees, nothing between us, you, me, and Jesus. Come what may, the highs, the lows. Well, this life will be hard, but you and me won't. Oh, when it's time to say goodbye, we'll rest in our foundation, hand in hand, on our knees, nothing between us. 'Cause in the end, even death could only lead us to you, me, and Jesus.
This program has been made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.